A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. The topic for today's lecture is, does Quran says that the sun revolves around the earth? There is no doubt that the critics are leaving no stone unturned to tarnish the image of the Quran and Islam. Though I'll mention the root cause of this hatred in some other lecture recorded specifically to answer this question alone, fact remains that they point an accusing finger against the Quran and Islam because of their hatred and ill will towards the Muslims. This hatred and ill will is owing to two factors. One, because of the propaganda that has been unleashed all through the history and is only growing in venom in these days, owing chiefly to the new social media tools that have made it easier to reach the masses. As I have said, I'll discuss in some other lecture why this venom and propagandist campaigns are gaining an intensity in the modern times. The other reason for this hatred is the conduct that these people see of the Muslims around them, which make them believe that the many accusations being leveled against the Quran and the Islam might indeed be true. Here I believe that Muslims at large are indeed responsible for many accusations that are being labeled at the Quran and Islam. Muslims left true teaching of Quran and Islam long back when the Islam preached by Messenger Mohammad was in its infancy, and yet continued to call their digress actions in accordance with the Quran and Islam. So much so that the terrorists of today, as well as the marauding armies of the past, the butchers of their time, the usurpers of land, the captors of innocent natives of other kingdoms, as well as the ferocious warriors and corrupt rulers, all tried to label their acts as in accordance of the Quran and Islam. Never did they confess that their acts were not in accordance with the teachings of Quran and Islam. Muslims of modern times will have to rise from this slumber and understand the true Quran and true Islam, and instead of trying to prove their acts in accordance with the Quran and Islam, they will have to acknowledge whether any of their act has been in accordance with the Quran and Islam or not. It is they who have, through their conduct, allowed the blame and accusations to reach the Quran and Islam. Only when they will understand and start following the true teaching of their religion, they will be in position to distinguish between truth and falsehood, light and darkness, religion and irreligiosity. The accusation we are going to see today is whether the Quran says that the sun revolves around the earth instead of the scientifically proven fact now that it is the earth that revolves around the sun. This accusation was brought in front of me not by a non-Muslim but by a Muslim who succumbed to the propaganda that is being carried out to portray the Quran and Islam in bad light, and said to me that the Quran indeed says that the sun revolves around the earth. While I told him that this was not the case, and since we know that it is the creator of the universe who has spoken through the Quran, it cannot speak of any phenomenon that is against scientific principles. But he was convinced that Quran says that it is the sun that revolves around the earth, and said to me that since Quran is a religious book, we shall not search for scientific truths in it, as if he was trying to show the innocence of Quran. I told him that Quran is indeed not a book of science, but despite that, nothing that the Quran says can be against the actual phenomenon of nature, since the Almighty Absolute God, who is called Allah by the Muslims, existed even before the nature came into being, and all the science that we know today is nothing but the discovery and study of the nature that He created and its constituents. It is this Almighty Absolute to whom the Quran is attributed. Let us first see what is the accusation, and then we will try to see exactly what the Quran is saying. We found one such accuser on the site reddit.com under the heading, "The Quran says the sun revolves around the earth," where the accuser gives his own analysis of a few Quranic verses and then sums up in these words. If the Quran was the word of a God, it wouldn't have seemed so confused to the point where it completely loses sight of the reality of the earth, moon and sun relation. The above verses clearly show the Quran was limited to primitive, archaic understandings of the sun and moon. Nothing in the verses alludes to anything that any Arabian could deduce from watching the sky back in the day. This proves that all the criticism is directed at proving that Quran is not the word of God. The foremost verse that the accuser cites is verse 3640 from the Quran, which says, "Neither can the sun overtake the moon, nor the night outspace the day. Each of them keeps coursing in its orbit." In his analysis of this verse, the accuser says, this verse clearly states the sun is in an orbit and places it directly in comparison with the moon's orbit. No one with any sense of self-respect or intellectual honesty would think this verse is not meant to directly apply an orbit similar to the moon to the sun. The belief was that the sun moves around the earth in an orbit prescribed by Allah, the same as the moon. There is nothing that states anything like the moon revolving around the earth and the earth then revolving around the sun. Here the critic has tried to deduce what the Quran never said. What the Quran is saying is only this, that the sun and moon both are coursing in their own respective orbits. What the critic perhaps don't know is that modern day science has concluded that not only the sun but the entire solar system is not stationary and moving around in a much bigger orbit in the Milky Way. Before we give our opinion on this, let us first ponder as to who is the audience of the Quran. Rather, for whom is the Quran written? Is Quran a book for the engineers or for the rocket scientists, or is it for a village farmer, for a 6th century Arab Bedouin nomad, or for a 21st century educated social media savvy world citizen? Quran is not a book for any of them, and yet it is the book for all of them. Quran says it is the book for the muttaqeen. Surah Baqarah, chapter 2, verse 2. This is the book in which there is no doubt. In it there is guidance for the muttaqeen. Be it from amongst the Arab Bedouin nomad or a modern day educated social media savvy world citizen, be it from amongst the farmer or the nuclear scientist, Quran is the book of guidance for all those who, despite whatever time period and region they are living and whatever profession they are carrying, they are trying to enhance piety in their lives. They are trying to upgrade their spiritual level and pursuing to tread the path to become better human beings. Thus, Quran is supposed to be a book of guidance for inner upliftment and cleansing, one that purifies a person from evil and consequently brings peace and comfort to his self. Science must tell how much progress it has made to understand the inner self and spirituality that Quran is talking about and addressing. Thus, Quran is not a book of science for the scientists but a book of spiritual guidance for all humanity. Imagine if Stephen Hawking or APJ Abdul Kalam were to speak on TV about day and night. Won't they talk of the sunrise and the sunset? If they talk of the sunrise and the sunset, would you say they do not know the principles of basic science according to which it is the earth that is revolving and not the sun which is rising and setting? Every newspaper in the world writes about the sunrise and sunset timings for the city from where the edition comes out. Would you say the editor of all the newspapers of the world are not aware of the natural phenomena? No, when a general audience is being addressed, the most accepted way is to talk in the general parlance. In fact, even if Stephen Hawking or APJ Abdul Kalam were to address a gathering of knowledgeable scientists, it is possible they would use the term sunrise and sunset, unless their talk is exclusively on describing the motion of the earth and the sun. The purpose of the Quran is not to tell about the scientific facts which are nothing but the attempt by man to study the nature that came into existence when the Almighty Absolute Creator decided to create the universe, but to act as a guidance for those who are trying to find the path of spiritual excellence and self-growth, even if they belong to any time or any region. There are some Hindus who too proudly say that the Vedas are talking of modern scientific discoveries more than 7,000 years back. They too should know that the Vedas are not a book of science, but they are a book of guidance and prophecies. While neither the Vedas nor the Quran shall be believed to be telling scientific hidden knowledge, but if they indeed choose to give some scientific knowledge, it is incidental and merely for the purpose of highlighting certain other spiritual aspects. Truth is that scientific knowledge stands gazing aghast and natural phenomena bends in subjugation for a person treading the path of spiritual ascent. This is the reason why we sometimes find such a person walking on the water, curing an age-old leper in seconds, transmigrating from one place to another distant place in seconds, bringing the throne from one far-off place within an eye blink, making the dead alive, lifting huge mountain on his hands, coming out alive from the blazing fire, or riding the wind to the destination of his choice. Such a person, if he orders his stick, it turns into a snake, or if he hits the stick on water, it divides into two. A small wayfarer of that spiritual path, if he orders a pond, it empties inside his water bag, and if he orders, his shoe rises to beat the magician in the sky. At times, he makes the setting sun to reappear in the sky and shows the world how the moon splits into two. The spiritual ascent that the Quran teaches, even if those treading the path are only a handful, the entire natural and scientific phenomena can be seen subjugating and obeying to their command. What is most certain is that since the Vedas and the Quran are indeed from the Almighty, who is the creator of all the scientific phenomena of nature, nothing can be said either in the Vedas or Quran that is against the true natural phenomena that exist. And if the two are seen in contrast, either the Vedic or the Quranic verse has not been understood in the right context, or the science is still in the infancy of its learning, and perhaps the man of future generations will come to understand that verse better. In short, Quran cannot go against true scientific knowledge because science is subsequent and all scientific knowledge owes its creation to the one who sent the Quran. Let us return to verse 36:40 from the Quran, which says, "Neither can the sun overtake the moon, nor the night outspace the day. Each of them keeps coursing in its orbit." Where does the Quran say that the sun revolves around the earth? If certain Muslim scholars of yesteryears came to such conclusions, it was because they tried to understand Quran based on the accepted scientific notions of that period. Right from the time of Ptolemy in the 2nd century BC, European philosophers and scientists believed that the earth stood still at the center of the universe and every other body, including the sun, moved around it. This was called geocentric concept of the universe or geocentrism. Even prior to Ptolemy, Aristotle, who lived from 384 to 322 BC, believed that the earth was center of the universe and the sun, moon, planets and all the fixed stars revolved around it. Aristotle's model had a total of 55 objects in his idea of the universe. At the center of the universe was Earth. From the center to the farthest exterior, the objects were as follows: Earth, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Sun, Mars, Jupiter and Saturn. Beyond Saturn, stars were in a fixed position. Past the stars lay the spiritual space where mankind could never go. This model and many like it lasted until the 16th century AD. The Quran descended on the earth in the early years of the 7th century AD, when this theory was very much accepted all through the Europe and the Middle East. If Quran had endorsed the same theory that was in existence during that period, there could have been reasons to be critical. But what we find is that the Quran chooses its words so carefully that while the people of those times were unable to digress the conversation, once the scientific discovery was made, we found that the Quranic wordings were such that they were already talking about the same. And when new discoveries were made, we found that even those were being endorsed by the Quran. That is why it is said that the Quran is a miracle for all ages. It was in 1512 that Nicholas Copernicus first put forth his heliocentric theory of planetary motion, which stated that the sun is motionless at the center of the solar system with the planets revolving around it. Though the scientific understanding had reversed in the opposite direction, we find that Quran is even talking ahead. As per new understanding, the sun was motionless at the center of the solar system with the planets revolving around it, but the Quran was still saying that even the sun is in motion in its own orbit. Several hundred years later, when science came to conclusion that the sun too was in orbit, then we find Quran saying that the sun is moving towards a fixed destination. Today, science has even concluded that the sun is moving towards a set destination, which will be the end of its journey. We'll talk about it later. Johannes Kepler was a German scientist who published the Astronomia Nova in 1609, which talked of the Kepler's laws of planetary motion, in which he concluded that not only the planets moved in elliptical orbits around the sun, they also rotate on its axis at regular speed. It was after this knowledge came to the forefront that it became possible for the European scientists to explain correctly many of the mechanisms of the solar system. After these discoveries, it was accepted that the sun was stationary and does not rotate on its axis like the earth. But the Quran was still saying that the sun too rotates on its axis. While the scientists started accepting this knowledge in the early 17th century, it took still some time for the church and the common Europeans to accept this, as this knowledge was contradictory to the largely accepted theory of the earth being the center of the universe and the sun moving around it. In fact, Italian astronomer Galileo di Vincenzo, or Galileo, lost his life due to religious opposition to his ideas through the Christian church. If many Quranic translations of the same period also subscribed to the same theory, it was because this theory was largely accepted around the world. The Catholic Church, which was very powerful and influential in Galileo's period, strongly supported the theory of a geocentric or earth-centered universe. After Galileo began publishing papers about his astronomical discoveries and his belief in a heliocentric or sun-centered universe, he was called to Rome to answer charges brought against him by the Inquisition, which was the legal body of the Catholic Church. Early in 1616, Galileo was accused of being a heretic, a person who opposed church teachings. Heresy was a crime for which people were sometimes sentenced to death. Galileo was cleared of charges of heresy but was told that he should no longer publicly state his belief that Earth moved around the Sun. Galileo continued his study of astronomy and became more and more convinced that all planets revolved around the Sun. In 1632, he published a book that stated, among other things, that the heliocentric theory of Copernicus was correct. Galileo was once again called before the Inquisition and this time was found guilty of heresy. Galileo was sentenced to life imprisonment in 1633. Because of his age and poor health, he was allowed to serve his imprisonment under house arrest. Galileo died on January 8, 1642, while still in house arrest. It is mostly the Western critics who point an accusing finger at the Quran that it talks of the sun revolving around the earth, while we will show that Quran does not talk about it. Rather, it even endorses the later-day scientific findings. These critics don't mention what was the basis of the view of the Christian church that it punished Galileo for his views as late as 1642. Was there something mentioned in the Christian scriptures which formed the basis of the church's view? Now ponder for a while. Had Quran said clearly in the early 7th century itself when it descended that it was the earth that revolves around the sun and not as was generally believed, it would have stopped the entry of the innumerable Europeans and West Asians into Islam who at that time would have called the Quranic teaching as against the generally accepted teaching, just as they were unable to digest the views of Galileo as late as the 17th century AD. Quran, on the other hand, had come to remove the evils that perpetuated the society and lead mankind to zenith of spiritual ascent. This indeed was the purpose of the Quran, and this has been the purpose of all avatars, that is Rasuls or messengers who have been sent from time to time. However, Quran is at no point refuting the true scientific principle. When new scientific evidence came to light, we found that the Quran was already talking about it. And when even further knowledge came, we found that the Quran was talking of that as well. The Quran does not at any place say that the sun revolves around the earth. In the verse 36-40, it says that the sun and the moon move with defined orbits. Neither can the sun overtake the moon, nor the night outspace the day. Each of them keeps coursing in its orbit. Now ponder, Quran descended in the early 7th century. In the 17th century, about 1000 years later, when scientists reversed the accepted view and claimed that sun was stationary and it was the earth that was revolving, the Quran was still saying that even the sun was revolving. Scientists learnt of this much later. Another orbit-related example in the Quran is in verse 40-37, wherein it is said, "And there is a sign in the night for them. We strip off the day from it and they are left in darkness." And in 21:33 it is said, "It is He who created the night and the day, and the sun and the moon, all that is the celestial bodies swim along, each in its rounded course." The sun and the moon is traveling in an orbit. Orbit means revolving with its own motion, means rotating. Experts of Arabic language say that the word used in the above verse is yasbahun. The word yasbahun is derived from the word sabaha, which describes the motion of a moving body. If one uses the Arabic word sabaha for a man moving from here to there on floor, it will not mean rolling, it will mean walking or running. If one uses the same word for somebody in water, it will not mean rolling or floating, it will mean swimming. When Quran uses the same word for a celestial body, it does not mean that it is flying through space. It means it is rotating as it goes through space, that is on its own axis. It will be moving in the manner objects move in the space. The world refers to an action performed by someone on their own. Someone acting according to this verb continues to perform it alone with no intervention from anyone else. The above verses may therefore be referring to the sun's independent motion in the universe, independent of any other celestial body. Till recent times, the scientists believed that the sun was stationary, but the Quran says that it is the Allah who created the night and the day, the sun and the moon, each one traveling in the orbit in its own motion. Clearly, Quran says the sun and the moon, besides revolving, also rotates on its own axis. Today, science has discovered that even the sun rotates. The fact that the sun rotates can be proven by using an equipment that projects the image of the sun on a tabletop, where one can examine the image of the sun without being blindfolded by its light. It has been seen that the sun has spots which completes its circular motion once every 25 days. This means the sun takes about 25 days to rotate on its axis. Now we know that the period of time the sun takes to complete its orbit around the Milky Way galaxy is called one cosmic year. NASA solar system exploration missions have found out through solar satellite observatories that the sun orbits around the Milky Way galaxy, bringing the planets, asteroids, comets, and other objects along with it. Sun, along with the Earth and other planets and astronomical bodies, that is the solar system, is moving with an average velocity of about 150 miles per second or 450,000 miles per hour, that is 720,000 kilometers per hour. But even at this speed, it takes us about 230 million years to make one complete orbit around the Milky Way. The sun rotates as it orbits the center of the Milky Way. Its spin has an axial tilt of 7.25 degrees with respect to the plane of the planet's orbit. Since the sun is not a solid body, different parts of the sun rotate at different rates. At the equator, the sun spins around once about every 25 days, but at its poles, the sun rotates once on its axis every 36 Earth days. Quran at another point says, and the sun runs on course towards a stopping point. That is the determination of the exalted in might, the knowing. And the moon we have determined for its phases until it returns, appearing like the old date stalk. It is not permitted to the sun to catch up the moon, nor can the night outstrip the day. Each just swims along in its own orbit according to the law. This is another translation of the same verse we have given before. Thus you can see that the Quran even goes on to say that the sun is moving towards a fixed destination and each has a specified term period assigned for it. Once the sun reaches that specified destination, its life will end. The fixed place towards which the sun is traveling to has been given a name by modern astronomy. Scientists now say that the solar system is moving towards the star Vega. Astronomers call this motion the apex of the sun's way or solar apex. The solar system is indeed moving in space towards a point situated in the constellation of Hercules that is called the Alpha layer, whose exact location is firmly established. Hence it is proved that sun is moving towards its stopping point as disclosed by Quran centuries ago. There are some who would say that how is it possible that the solar system's movement is for a specified time and beyond which this would cease to orbit. However, modern day scientists too are coming to the same viewpoint that the life of the solar system is fixed or preordained. Daniel Macmillan of NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center is said to have said, the solar day is gradually getting longer because Earth's rotation is slowing down ever so slightly. This can be proven from the Puranic description regarding the Brahma day and night. According to this description, each Brahma day comprises of 1000 units or cycles, which mean to say that it consists of 1000 times human existence on earth, thereby meaning to say 1000 times Adams. Interestingly, someone asked Ali, what was there prior to Adam? He said Adam. What was prior to Adam? He again said Adam, and continued to say Adam 40 or 70 times, as per the report, till the questioner stopped asking. Likewise, Quran even goes on to say that presently we are living in the progeny of 994th Adam. Once this cycle of 1000 Adams is completed, the universe will be rounded up until the manner in which it expanded gets reversed. Even Quran talks of this when it says that when the universe is reversed, nothing will remain but Wajhullah, the face of Allah, rather the manifest face of Allah. In Upanishadic terms, this manifest face of Allah is called Vishnu. Thus, we find that Quran and Sanatana scriptures are on one page here as well. Surah Az-Zumar too is depicting the movement of the earth through the repetitive progress of day and night. It says clearly that a specified term has been fixed both for sun and moon. Surah Az-Zumar, verse 5. He created the heavens and the earth with truth. He wraps the night around the day and wraps the day around the night, and has made the sun and moon subservient, each one running for a specified term. Is he not indeed the Almighty, the endlessly forgiving? In the above verse, the movement of the earth is described by the word yukawwiru, which comes from the root word takfir, meaning to cover up a spherical body. In the way that the rotation of the earth gives rise to night and day, like the winding of a turban. In addition to the spherical shape of the earth, this world is also the most accurate expression of its movement around the sun. Because of the earth's spherical shape and its movement around the sun always illuminates one side of the earth while the other is in darkness. The side in shadow is shrouded by the darkness of the night to be replaced by the brightness of the day when the sun rises. Now let's come to the next part of the verse mentioned above, which says, "And the moon we have determined for its phases until it returns, appearing like the old date stalk." Here Allah told us long before the scientific advancements about the orbital motion of moon, and it can be watched clearly by everyone during night at the sky, how moon changes its shape from day 1 till the last day of the lunar calendar to its initial stage from the day 1. And this process continues to repeat as moon completes its orbit around the earth in a year, which is 11 days shorter than the solar year, which is approximately 365 days, which earth takes to complete its orbit around the sun. Hence, we find that the lunar motion is also proved by scientific facts by Quran centuries ago and also can be observed through the sky. Now let's come to the last part of the verse mentioned above. It is not allowable for the sun to reach the moon, nor does the night overtake the day, but each in an orbit is swimming. Here Quran is clearly declaring Allah's power, glory and wrath, that neither sun can touch or come in between the lunar orbital motion, nor the moon can come between the sun. And the night cannot overtake the day, and the day cannot overtake the night, but each in an orbit. We have shown earlier that the word used here is yasbahun, which refers to the movement of the celestial bodies as they move in the space. Devoid of words, the translator has translated the word used here by the word swimming, which is referred to as two motions at a time, that is rotational and orbital motion. This phenomenon can be understood by throwing a soccer ball into the water. The ball will undergo both rotational and orbital motion. The same is followed by astronomical objects, that is Earth, which is spherical in structure and undergoes both rotational and orbital motion. Each orbital motion is the reason we have 365 days long year, and rotational motion is the cause of the night and day changes, as Allah said in the above verse, "Nor does the night overtake the day," and vice versa. In 24:44 of Quran, Allah says, "Allah alternates the night and the day. Indeed, in that is a lesson for those who have vision." This verse is explanatory of Earth's rotational or ecliptical motion, changing the night into day and day into night, and Allah is the only glory who ensure the alternative changing of night and day. This Quranic verse also proves the earth is in motion and not stationary. Everything is moving as per Quran through a prefixed estimate or assessment fixed by the God Almighty, and this will continue to happen till the time God has decreed. You have seen that our attempt here was to refute the accusations that are being leveled on the Quran. We have shown that the Quran is far ahead of its times in revealing scientific facts to mankind, even though this is not the express purpose of sending the Quran. At no point it can be imagined that Quran will speak anything that is against the scientific principles, because as we have said, science is nothing but the study of natural phenomena created by God Almighty, and Quran is from that source itself which created the natural phenomena that exists in the universe. God is indeed the creator of the universe, and the natural phenomena that exist therein Even the Nurani Ruh or Divyatmas, who we are proving are the same divinities that are described in the Vedas and were created long before the first Adam was created, knew these natural phenomena as well as the scientific principles that exist in the universe because the universe was created subsequent to their creation. This can be proven from the Upanishads, Gita, and the Vedas. When these Nurani Ruhs or Divyatmas descended in human bodies in the Arabian region, they were called Ahlul Bayt. Ali, in whom one of the seven Divyatmas or Nurani Ruhs was working, as we have proven in earlier lectures, told of the distance between sun and earth in accordance with the distance terminology that was used during those medieval periods. This cannot be denied, as the description given by Ali is mentioned in the books written more than 1,000 years back when none knew the distance between the earth and the sun. We give an example. A man pointing towards the sun asked Ali, "What is the distance between me and the sun?" The complexity of this question is worth mentioning here. The man was an Arab, and in the Arabic language, the numbers or count is limited up to 1,000. The answer to the question dealt in millions, that is the distance between earth and the sun. It was like a challenge to Ali to answer him in a convincing manner without confusing him. So he said, "If an Arab horse starts running from here and continues running for 500 years, then the horse will reach the sun." The man was convinced and walked away. But it is for us now to ponder on what Ali said. The average speed of an Arab horse is 22 miles per hour. If a horse runs the full day, that is 24 hours, it will cover approximately 520 miles. This gives us the distance the horse will cover in 24 hours or one day. To calculate the distance covered by the horse in 1 month, we multiply 520 by 29.5, taking an average of the number of months in a lunar calendar, assuming that 6 months are of 29 days and 6 months are of 30 days. It gives us something around 15,500. The horse will cover 15,500 miles in 1 month. To get the distance that he will travel in 1 year, we multiply it by 12. Since there are 12 months in a year, it gives 1,86,000. Then we multiply 1,86,000 by 500, as the horse should run for 500 years, which gives us 93,000,000 miles. Now if one asks an astronomer about the distance of sun from the earth, he will tell us that the distance is never constant. The orbit of the earth is oval in shape. Sometimes it comes near to the sun, and on other occasions it distances itself from the sun. When the earth is closest to the sun, its distance is 91,000,000 miles, and the distance when it is farthest from the sun is 948,000,000 miles. When we take the average, it comes to around 93,000,000 miles, which was exactly what Ali had said. To be more exact, it comes to 92,896,000 miles. It is today we are talking about the average. If you ask me, my belief is that the day when the seeker asked the question, if the scientists would have calculated the distance between the earth and the sun on that day, they would have found that the distance on that day would have been exactly what Ali told. 1400 years back, the distance between earth and sun could have been told with such accuracy by none else but one whose Noor was created far before the creation of the cosmos. That Ali and Muhammad's Noor was created prior to all else too has been told to us by Avatar Muhammad.